Right, more on today's big stories now. Sky News political reporter Cam Reddin joins us and senior reporter from Sydney, Carolyn Marcus. Well, welcome to you both. I'll start with the big story, aside from Assange, the stuff that actually turns the tables in elections. This is the economy, and this is the stats out from the Bureau of Statistics today. Inflation up 4% in May. That is a 6-month high. Increasing rents, electricity prices, petrol, they're the pain points for consumers. Economists are already saying this means there'll be pressure on the Reserve Bank to hike rates come August, which would basically wipe out any tax cut win for those with a mortgage. Cam, I know, as I said, the Canberra bubble's all about Assange today, but this is where voters are at, and it's the economy stupid at the next election, isn't it?
Yeah, this is what really shifts the needle for people, Peter. And with fewer meetings, of course, with the Reserve Bank now under this new model this year, there's additional pressure at every meeting for the Reserve Bank to get ahead of inflation as best it can by going earlier on rate rises if it's going to move at all, rather than leaving it later. There's still under 6 weeks until the next meeting, and Michele Bullock has said for several meetings now that she's got her finger essentially on the button to lift rates if she needs to do it. They're standing ready, but they still want to see that big quarterly figure for quarterly inflation, which will come out at the end of next month, and that will then determine largely what they decide to do in August. It's such a politically difficult mix for the government, Peter, because you've got this situation with unemployment hovering around 4%. It's great that people are in work, but inflation is just not going down. It was trending down last year, hit the skids around 3.5% at Christmas time, and is now slowly ticking back up. And that's the trend, that if it doesn't get under control, then that's when households feel it, and certainly the government will feel it from a political sense too.
And Cara, we know people are worried. There's research out that says 52%, so a majority of people saying, look, we're in stress, we're in mortgage stress. They anticipate a rate increase. They spend half of their income now to meet mortgage repayments. 16% say they're struggling. They might not be in stress, but they're struggling. You know, the PM speaks to his caucus. He says, campaign on nothing else but the handouts I'm delivering on the 1st of July. But they're a drop of the ocean when you look at what might happen if rates increase in August. And this is where the punters are at, and not in any other issue. I mean, it is literally survival.
And it's pretty bleak, isn't it, the consumer sentiment out there? And that's as people prepare to have these sorts of handouts that you're talking about here, the energy bill rebates that have been promised on a federal level, and as well as in some states and territories, as well as those stage 3 tax cut changes. Despite all of that, people are feeling this deep pessimism, according to this latest survey, monthly survey that was put out by Westpac. And of course, it comes after the Reserve Bank governor last week says that it would take a lot to go our way in order for more interest rate hikes not to happen. So I think people are feeling pretty low about this, and you know, a few handouts is probably not going to make a lot of difference for many households.
And that is the big dice the government's rolling in order to get, they hope, a lift in the polls. AEMO puts a report out today that says the 25-year roadmap to net zero is looking pretty grim. It says we're facing blackouts unless we blanket regional Australia with renewables, unless we build 10,000 kilometres plus of new transmission lines before coal exits the grid in 2035. AEMO has costed the investment required, this is in transmission, generation and storage, at $122 billion by 2050. Now, that's not everything in those numbers. If you look carefully, Cam, at the report they put out, there's a whole table at the back to say, here are all the things we need but that we haven't yet costed. So $122 billion is on the cheap. It makes nuclear look very viable in my world.
That's a lot of money, isn't it, Peter? And AEMO's been pretty clear about this short-term threat as well. It's been sounding the alarm bells for the best part of a week now about these gas shortages and the threat of running out of gas in winter, due largely, by its own assessment, due to the underperformance of renewables. We know the government has an 82% target for 2030. It's really relying on that to meet its emissions targets. At the moment, I just checked the grid, about 35% roughly is being provided into the system by renewables. That's on the East Coast market. So still a long way from where the the government wants to be on that. And AEMO has been pretty clear in its assessment of where renewables and the rollout is at, that they're simply not currently providing the amount of generation that was required, that was expected in these colder months. So as that demand goes up, the temperature goes down, people need more heating, there's essentially now this urgent call out for producers to pump as much gas as they can into the system simply to cover the gaps. Now, there's an issue with even getting additional supply in because projects have been subject to delays. There have been other issues as well, including with getting them approved. But there's a hope that this Kurri Kurri gas plant in the Hunter, when that comes online later in the year, that will help in New South Wales. But both parties know, Peter, the short-term requirement really is to open the floodgates and get gas into the market. We saw that in the government's plan it released as well, knowing both sides essentially acquiescing to the fact that gas is really the short-term solution to this.